Okay, I wanted to do this because during my show with Andrew, I was talking about astrology, the UK chart, predictions for the UK. I have covered some of this before, but I do want to recap it. I had to race through it so quickly on the show because it was near the end. So I could have, I don't know, I was doing it like horse racing, and I think a lot could have got lost. So I just wanted to recap it again. Okay, Saturn was in Aquarius conjunct Venus this year for the UK, and right now it's going retrograde. It's retrograde, and it's going to go direct near that point, but it won't go as far as to actually make a full conjunction, but it's close enough, right? I think it's turning retrograde on 17 degrees of Aquarius. Venus is on 16 degrees of Aquarius in the UK chart. What happened when this was last going on? Well, first of all, in 1992, there was Black Wednesday. It was also Annus Horribilis for the royal family, which I've talked about before, because I'm also saying this is kind of Annus Horribilis for the royal family as well. During that year, Ukraine rejected Russia's proposal for a joint military. Interesting, because there's the Ukraine-Russia connection again. John Major narrowly clung on to power, but as you know, this was during the time of the kind of disastrous John Major government that led to the landslide of Tony Blair. There was a recession, job losses, 9.4% unemployment, the Bank of Credit and Commerce collapsed, GDP had fallen. There was also the time of, it was the Maastricht Treaty, crime was on the up, there were riots, key this, because every one of these little chart comparisons has riots coming up. And unemployment was greater than 10%, right? So you can see similar themes there with the Black Wednesday, stock market crashing, of course, and the bad economy. In March 1963, that was also happening, and it was the worst winter since 1946. That's a theme. Very cold winters. So get ready, guys. This might be a very cold winter. Tories were doing very, very badly in 1963 as well, because there was the Profumo affair, and I've said before, are we going to see some other sort of scandal that's going to bring down this Tory government? And there were race riots, so rioting again. In February 1934, the British Union of Fascists had a huge march, 10,000 people. I don't know if they were real fascists or just people the government didn't like, hard to know. But again, uprising kind of thing. Uranus in Taurus will be squaring Saturn, which is in the 11th house of the UK chart, and at 22 degrees of Leo. So Uranus is squaring that next year. When did that last happen? Well, it happened in 2001 when there were race riots in Burnley and rioting in Brixton. Again, riots, right? In September 1980, that was when, the Queen became the first monarch to visit the Vatican, right? Oh, well, we know that's not going to replicate unless Charles is going to do something with the Vatican. There was the Denmark Palace fire, which introduces a new theme, fire, which we're going to see reoccurring. Again, the Tories were doing terribly in the polls, so that's a theme. There was striking, recessions, same as now. It was also the Iranian embassy siege, but not quite saying we'll see that again. Unemployment was at a post-war high, and there was the Alexander Palace was gutted by fire. It's also the time of the Rendlesham Forest incident. Maybe tap into that whole UFO thing they might want to foist upon us. Next, the North Node conjunct Mars in Taurus, which is happening. That happened in 1987, and again, the King's Cross fire. Very significant fire in UK history. The Channel Tunnel got the go-ahead. There was a cold wave, extremely heavy snow in the UK and Ireland. Cold winter theme again. Unemployment reached 3 million. The Church of England started the ordination of women. There was general election called. We're rioting in Leeds. And what else? Was that the Hungerford? The time of the Hungerford. There was also the Great Storm of 1987. You will remember the weather forecasters here were saying, it's a nothing burger. Some guy called Michael Fish, who was a weatherman, said that's a nothing burger. The next thing was like one of the worst storms ever. So again, we have this freak weather event theme. There was Black Monday that year when 50 trillion, was it? 50 trillion was wiped off Wall Street. So again, massive problem. And there was the Zeebrugge disaster. 1967 is another time where we've got this nodal link to Mars, and that was the coldest February ever. The average temperature was minus 1.9 centigrade. The Thames flooded. Another sort of theme going on there with weather. This was in 47, by the way. I don't know what I had for 67. I don't know. Maybe one of those I read was for 67, but anyway, forget that. So 1947, we're back to talking about, and there were also, the UK lost its currency reserves. another economic thing. Now, Pluto going into a fixed sign, as we'll have Pluto going into Aquarius. The last time when Pluto was going into Scorpio was November 83. It was also a year of general election, which is why I'm anticipating a snap general election end of this year, beginning of next year, and some sort of concocted crisis to bring down the Tory government is what I'm predicting. That year, November 83, was the May's prison escape and unemployment greater than 3 million. In August 1938, when Pluto was in 0 degrees of Leo, gas masks were issued to the entire population because beginning of the war, right? Beginning of the World War II. When we go to 1976, that was actually the South Node on Mars in the UK chart. Jupiter was triggering Mars as well in the 8th house in Taurus in the UK chart, and Saturn was triggering Jupiter. Now it will be Pluto triggering Jupiter this year, but it's quite a few triggering of the same planets. The UK had to get an IMF bailout, the sterling crashed, and in June 1976 the pound reached a record low against the dollar. So guys, when you look back at astrology, we see a lot of the themes we can already see happening. The theme about fire could be interesting. You know, what is that, like Putin's going to bomb London? I don't know. I said to Andrew, maybe it's some sort of concocted fire or flood at Westminster so they can move Parliament up to Manchester, which would suit Labour just fine. Okay, did I have another sundry from Andrew's show? I did. I don't know if I'll be able to call it up on my phone. The other sundry was I mentioned Jimmy Savile. Do you know that Jimmy Savile was a suspect in the Yorkshire Ripper case? And he knew the Hindleys of the the Hindleys from the Moors murders. Funny that Jimmy Savile, so closely linked to the royal family or big pal of Prince Charles from looking at photos, seemed to be around all the time. Mountbatten introduced him to the royal circle, that he was a suspect in the Yorkshire Ripper and knew the Hindleys. Interesting. And some people have said that, you know, you get these serial killers, like the big ones, like Al Bundy and the 9 Mile Killer. I think there was also up in Seattle. And they say it's never really one person. It's really, you know, people, the elites, you know, behind the scenes having their wicked way with women, and then they find like one fall guy to blame it all on. So that was interesting. I wanted to mention, because of the Queen's funeral, you know, they have the orb and the other thing, the staff. Fails me what it's called. And the staff has the Cullen Diamond, the world's biggest diamond is in that. And it just kind of reminds you how much of the world's treasures the royal family has hoarded. And I did wonder, how did they come to get the Cullen Diamond, right? Seemed a bit curious. I'm just going to see if I had it here. Now, the Cullen Diamond was discovered at the Cullen Mine, which is a few miles east, 40 miles or so east of Pretoria, and it was sent to Holland to be cut, and they managed to, I think, to create about 10 different diamonds out of it. I think all are in possession of the royal family. So it says, I got this interesting little blurb, and you know, kind of, it's discovered north of Pretoria in the kind of Transvaal province. There's just been the kind of Boer War. There's bad relations. Why would they want to take this precious diamond and give it to the royal family? So according to this article, history was repeating itself. In 1850, the last Maharaja of the Punjab handed the Kohinoor Diamond to the British Queen as a symbol of his people's loyalty to the crown. Sounds like it was extorted to me. Now, 5 years after the conclusion of the Boer War, one of the legendary generals of the Republic and now Premier of the Transvaal moved to present an even bigger diamond to the British King on behalf of the new country, or new colony, should I say. Why did Botha, who had fought the British so bravely and stubbornly during the war, endorse this exuberant expenditure? I presume he thought the Cullen Diamond was an important tool in dealings with London. The British would see the lavish gift as a sign of friendship and goodwill, and with public opinion in favour of the Transvaal, it would be easier to secure the provision of loans. Okay, so the royal family the British establishment have extorted these exorbitantly expensive and rare, precious jewels and whatnot from other countries as almost taking a bribe, or because London bankers lending, Rothschild, if the countries don't say, oh, please take this, they won't get a loan. And nothing can move without money, right? And so you can kind of see how why they've landed up with all these priceless jewels, because all these countries had to hand it over, like with a begging bowl, please, lend us money. Yeah, and that's why, guys, Giorgia Meloni is not going to be able to do much, because Italy don't have their own currency. They're reliant on the European Central Bank, and every government needs money. So there's no political solution, because everyone needs money and needs to borrow money at an amazing rate, because governments are all so overwhelmed with debt. I know Russia has only 8% debt. Some people say maybe they exaggerating, but that makes Russia a very, very big threat compared to places like Italy and the UK, who are going into ever greater debt by the day. Hope you've enjoyed those, guys. As you know, I always try and bring you something that's a little bit out of the ordinary, a little bit of history, astrology, news, projections, things that, I've found interesting that you're not necessarily going to get elsewhere. I don't think you will, and then I kind of join the dots for you. So I hope you enjoyed that. Take care.